Your computer is a piece of crap. At least Microsoft would have you believe that if it can't run Windows 11. Let's talk about that, because it's only 1 week until Windows 10 is no longer a viable operating system for you to use. So what options do you have? Let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, what I want to talk about is, are you a holdout? Have you been holding out on upgrading your PC to Windows 11, but your PC is perfectly capable? If so, do your upgrade. And the reason that I'm telling you to do this is because Windows 11 is good. It's been out now for 5 years. Now, good is in the eye of the beholder. You know, some people will still disagree with me on that. But the security fixes and patches that are in place and the stability of Windows 11 is greatly improved over what it was originally. So there's really no reason, if your computer is capable, for you to not be running Windows 11. If you are on 10 and you're just a holdout that hasn't upgraded, upgrade now if your computer is upgradable. Let's talk about what happens if your computer is not upgradable. If your PC is not upgradable to Windows 11, you do have options. You can stay on Windows 10 for a little bit longer, but it's at your own risk. The security vulnerabilities present in Windows 10 are going to multiply by the day. And what I mean by that basically is the operating system is a lot more easily hackable, exploitable, and unsafe if you don't actually do the upgrade to Windows 11. If you have a PC that cannot be upgraded to Windows 11, let's talk about why you need to upgrade or at least change an operating system. So let's talk about the reason why you might need to force an upgrade to Windows 11 if you have a PC that's technically not capable of running Windows 11, or why you just need to get on an operating system that's totally different from Windows 11. So have you ever daily driven a Windows computer and then gone onto a Mac and you have absolutely no freaking clue what you're doing? Well, that's kind of what you're in for if you choose not to upgrade to Windows 11 or choose not to go out and buy a brand new laptop. Do I expect that everyone out there is going to go out and buy a brand new laptop? Absolutely not. You know, there are laptops from 2017 that are still running very well today. 2017 was 8 years ago, right? That's why a lot of my donations for my nonprofit are 7 years old or newer, and that's what I require. The reason that I require that is because I want it to run all of the latest features and have security in place for the students that will eventually be using the computer. So you obviously have options when it comes to your upgrade path. Are you going to change operating systems? Are you going to force an upgrade to Windows 11? If you force an upgrade to Windows 11, there are caveats with that as well, because it can be done. You can definitely override the stuff that Microsoft has laid out, but there are some consequences to doing so, and it basically means a less feature-rich Windows 11. The first option that I would tell you to try out is, if you are comfortable with upgrading to Windows 11 and forcing the upgrade, do that. There are methods that you can use to do that, okay? The forced upgrade to Windows 11 is essentially taking a computer with a processor that's not approved by Microsoft and shoving that upgrade through so that you can still have the latest operating system. The problem is there are certain features that you won't get, and there are also certain updates that you won't be able to apply because you have to have, like, for example, you might have a full like 25H2 update or something like that for Windows 11 that can't apply properly because the computer is technically not compatible with Windows 11. And the compatibility issues usually stem from either your CPU is a little too old, your PC doesn't have TPM 2.0, or something to that effect. But essentially, there are features within Windows 11 that you can't use. For example, one of the key features that I like about Windows 11 is it has a restore your system function, like reinstall or repair version of Windows 11, right? If you ever have an update that comes through that's bad, that's just not going to be an option for you, right? You're not going to be able to select that option within your operating system, because when you do, it's going to try to reinstall Windows 11 on its own, and then it's going to fail, and it's going to fail because the computer doesn't meet the guidelines still. So again, you can force the upgrade to Windows 11, still have the operability that you want, but there could be some inconsistencies within the OS itself. Another thing to take into consideration is that if you choose the upgrade to Windows 11, if you choose the force upgrade to Windows 11, there might be some driver compatibility issues. And what I mean by driver compatibility is that you might have a keyboard on an HP laptop. HP doesn't release new drivers for an operating system that's technically not supported, so your keyboard might just up and stop working. And that's just kind of how it is. Most keyboard drivers are supported, so you don't have to worry too much, but there are instances where things like that can happen. And it's not just your keyboard. It could be your keyboard, it could be your webcam, it could be your screen, for all we know. And you could be on Windows 11 and on a laptop and your screen stops working, or your mouse driver is not working, or something like that. And there's really no solution to it, because if the manufacturer of your device does not release updates for the new operating system, you're kind of up. Yeah, without a paddle. So basically what I would say is upgrading to Windows 11 and forcing the upgrade is still at your own risk. It doesn't mean it's not doable. If you're running a desktop and you get your drivers from independent websites anyway, you're probably going to be okay. But if you're running something like an HP laptop or a Dell laptop that technically is not officially supported by Microsoft, you might run into some problems. Well, the next option that you can always choose for an upgrade path is to install something that's called Linux. Linux is another operating system that is sort of similar to Windows, but not really at all. You know, an operating system is essentially for those of you who don't know, is the programming of the computer that helps you actually do things. So Windows is an operating system, Mac OS is an operating system, Linux is an operating system. Linux is a free open source operating system, but there's quite a learning curve to it. And there's not nearly as much software available for Linux as there is for Windows. So for example, you could install Linux on your machine. You could do Ubuntu, Debian, Mint. There's a whole bunch of them out there. There's more flavors of Linux, and they call them flavors of Linux.
So good.
Then you can possibly imagine. If you take Windows, for instance, you know, Windows has generations. Linux has flavors. So there's a whole bunch of like Linux operating systems out there that are just skinned differently or do slightly different things, but they all are still Linux. Okay? So it's like if Windows had like a red layout or a red start button and all kinds of other fancy features that, you know, where the UI changed a little bit, that's kind of Linux's game. You know, Linux is, again, it's more of an advanced setup because there are certain commands you have to run in terminal. And if you are not comfortable with doing that, I don't usually recommend you use Linux. There is still a fair bit of software out there for Linux, and it's becoming a lot more widely supported, but it's not the average user's first option, okay? You can still have Word documents, you can still have all of the things that you would still imagine to do for basic operations on a computer, like a Spotify application if you want to listen to music. You know, you can still get on Google Chrome and use that if you want to. Firefox is installed on all Linux installations by default. But there are still other apps available for Linux that you don't have to run a terminal command to actually get. But to enable certain things on your operating system, you kind of do. And most of those things that you would have to enable are advanced features anyway. So if you're okay with getting used to a different UI, well, Linux might be for you. The next one I'm going to talk to you about is going to be a little bit different. but if you've ever heard of a Chromebook, you'll be pretty comfortable with it. All right, so the last kind of mainstream option that I really have for you is called ChromeOS Flex. Now, if you're familiar with a Chromebook, ChromeOS is the operating system that runs on a Chromebook. So essentially, ChromeOS Flex is ChromeOS without the App Store. And what I mean by App Store is just the Android apps that would run on it. Apparently those cannot actually be signed in ChromeOS Flex, so they're not usable. But ChromeOS Flex will operate just like ChromeOS, only you'll have a larger hard drive than you would if you were on a standard like Google Chromebook. And the reason that I would suggest maybe ChromeOS is because it's fairly straightforward, super easy to install, and you maintain a lot of your same functionality. You know, you'll be able to download ChromeOS apps, but you can also install some other apps as well. So the main functionality that you'll lose over a Windows operating system are things that most people don't do anyway, like running virtual machines, remoting into the machine, things like that. There was a whole article on it, and I'll put it in the link to the description. I'll put a link in the description of this video so that you guys can learn a little bit more about ChromeOS Flex. But ChromeOS Flex is a pretty solid option too. It's just, again, another upgrade path for you if you don't want to force your PC onto Windows 11. Alternatively, the path for you is ditching the PC that you've had since 2017 that might still be working fine and just getting yourself a new computer. That way you don't have to worry about any of this at all. But for me, I already have newer hardware, so it's not an issue. But for those of you who love the computer that you have and you don't want to trade it in or get something different, these are the options that I would consider. Thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to give this video a like if you found it helpful, and then subscribe so that you can see more awesome upcoming content. We've got a lot in store that's getting pretty interesting.